Before we descend into the shadows of this operation, if you are fascinated by the unseen world of intelligence and the tradecraft that shapes history, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. These are the stories that usually remain buried in classified archives. The rain in Piraeus, the port city south of Athens, does not wash things clean. It merely makes the grime slicker. It was a Tuesday night, the kind of weather that drives tourists into the warm tavernas of the Plaka and leaves the industrial docks to the workers, the strays, and the ghosts. Eitan sat in the driver's seat of a battered gray Peugeot rental, the engine off, the windows fogging slightly from the difference in temperature. He wiped the glass with a gloved hand, creating a portal through which he could watch the street. To anyone passing by, he was just another man waiting for a ferry or a late shift worker catching a nap. In reality, he was a veteran of the Caesarea unit, the elite division of Mossad responsible for operations outside the borders of Israel. He was a ghost in a city of ruins. Beside him sat Sarah. She was younger, her profile sharp against the dim streetlights. She was scrolling through a phone that was technically a clone of a device currently sitting in the pocket of a man inside the cafe across the street. "Target is static," Sarah said, her voice low. "He's on his third coffee. No calls yet." "He's waiting," Eitan replied, his eyes never leaving the cafe entrance. "Logistics men don't drink coffee at 11 p.m. unless they are waiting for a handover." The target was Youssef al-Najjar. Intelligence files described him as a facilitator. And he wasn't a trigger puller. He didn't plant devices on buses or launch rockets. He was far more dangerous. Youssef moved money, and recently he moved things. Intelligence gathered from a previous operation in Damascus suggested Youssef was in Greece to secure a shipping route for agricultural equipment. But Mossad knew that agricultural equipment was the oldest euphemism in the book. "Check the audio," Eitan commanded. Sarah adjusted the earpiece. A laser microphone directed at the cafe window was picking up the vibrations of the glass, translating them into sound. Just ambient noise, clinking cups, the waiter complaining about the rain. Youssef is silent. For 3 weeks they had tracked Youssef across Europe, from a safe house in Brussels to a meeting in Zurich, and now here, to the maritime heart of Greece. The operation was strictly surveillance. Watch, record, report. Those were the orders from Tel Aviv. Do not engage. Do not burn the location. But the atmosphere that night felt different. The air was heavy with ozone and diesel. "Movement," Eitan said, sitting up straighter. A black van, unmarked, pulled up to the curb in front of the cafe. It was a Mercedes Sprinter, the workhorse of European logistics, but this one sat heavy on its suspension. The side door slid open. Youssef stood up, left cash on the table, and walked out into the rain. He didn't speak to the driver. He simply climbed into the passenger seat. "We're moving," Eitan said, starting the Peugeot. He waited for the van to turn the corner before pulling out, keeping a parade distance, far enough back to be invisible, close enough to maintain visual contact. The van didn't head toward the ferry terminals or the commercial shipping lanes. It drove deeper into the industrial wasteland of the port, past the stacks of colorful shipping containers that formed steel canyons, toward the older, crumbling section of the docks known as the Rust Belt. "Where is he going?" Sarah whispered, cross-referencing the GPS map. "There's nothing down there but condemned storage units and scrap yards. Perfect place for a ghost." Eitan muttered. The van slowed and turned into a gated compound. The sign above the gate was faded, reading Hellenic Import-Export in peeling blue letters. The gate opened electronically. Someone was expecting them. Eitan killed the headlights and coasted into an alleyway 200 meters back. "We can't follow inside. We need eyes." They exited the vehicle, moving with the practiced silence of operatives who had spent lifetimes avoiding attention. The rain masked the sound of their boots on the wet pavement. They approached the perimeter fence, a rusted chain-link barrier topped with razor wire. Through the gaps in the fence, they watched. The van had parked in front of a massive, cavernous warehouse. The large sliding doors groaned open. "Look at the security," Sarah noted, handing Eitan the thermal binoculars. There were 4 men standing by the warehouse doors. They weren't wearing the uniforms of private security or port authority. They wore dark rain gear, standing with the discipline of soldiers. The way they held their hands near their chests suggested concealed weapons. "That's not a commercial crew," Aitan observed. "That's a detail." Youssef stepped out of the van. He was greeted by a man who emerged from the shadows of the warehouse. They didn't shake hands. They embraced like brothers. "I need a visual on what's inside," Aitan said. "Launch the bird." Sarah pulled a device the size of a hummingbird from her pack. It was a micro-drone, matte black and silent. She piloted it over the fence, keeping it high in the rafters of the warehouse as the doors remained open. The video feed flickered onto her tablet. The interior of the warehouse was vast, dimly lit by hanging sodium bulbs. But it wasn't empty. "My God," Sarah breathed. It wasn't agricultural equipment. Rows of long, olive-drab crates were stacked on pallets. But beyond the crates, under heavy tarps that had been partially pulled back, were shapes that were unmistakable to trained eyes. "Is that—" Sarah hesitated. Aitan looked at the screen, his face pale in the glow of the tablet. "Guidance fins, motor casings, and those crates. Look at the Russian markings." "I thought Hamas was running low on supplies," Sarah said. "Intel said they were scraping for parts." "Intel was wrong," Aitan said grimly. "They aren't scraping. They're restocking." And they found a supplier. They weren't looking at a few smuggled rifles. They had stumbled upon the missing arsenal, a strategic stockpile of advanced rocketry and guidance systems that had vanished from the radar in Sudan months ago. "We need to call Tel Aviv," Sarah said, reaching for the encrypted satellite link. "Wait," Aitan stopped her. "Look at the corner of the screen." In the shadows of the warehouse, a group of men were working on a cylinder. They weren't just storing the weapons. They were modifying them. "This isn't a storage unit," Aitan realized. "It's a factory." The rain continued to hammer the roof of the Peugeot, but inside the atmosphere was electric. The discovery in the warehouse had shifted the operational parameters from surveillance to critical threat. Aitan drove them to a secondary location, a safe house disguised as a small graphic design studio in the Exarchia district. It was a chaotic neighborhood, covered in graffiti and populated by students and anarchists. The perfect cover for Israeli intelligence. The police rarely patrolled here, and strange comings and goings were the norm. Once inside, the studio transformed. The blinds were drawn, the sweeping devices activated to check for bugs, and the secure communications array was powered up. "Let's build the profile," Aitan said, pulling up the image of the man who had greeted Youssef at the warehouse. "Who is the host?" Sarah ran the facial recognition software. The grainy image from the drone was enhanced, cross-referencing databases from Interpol, the CIA, and Mossad's own classified archives. A match pinged. "Adnan al-Masri," Sarah read, her eyes widening. "Born in Lebanon, 1965. Engineering degree from Berlin. We had him flagged as inactive since 2010. "Inactive?" Aitan scoffed. "In this business, inactive just means they learned how to hide better." "He was the protege of the old guard," Sarah continued. "He specialized in rocketry, solid fuel propellants. He disappeared after the Dubai operation against Mabhu. Everyone assumed he went to ground in Iran. Instead, he came to the cradle of democracy," Aitan mused. "Why Athens?" "It's the port," Sarah replied, bringing up a map of the Mediterranean shipping lanes. "Piraeus is one of the busiest ports in Europe. Thousands of containers move through there every day. It's the perfect needle in a haystack. You can move anything if you have the right paperwork." Aitan paced the small room. "Youssef is the money. Adnan is the brain. The warehouse is the workshop. They aren't just shipping rockets. They are upgrading them. The guidance kits we saw, if those get into the strip, the Iron Dome will be overwhelmed. Precision munitions change the math completely." He sat down at the secure terminal. "Get me the aquarium." The aquarium was the internal nickname for the Mossad executive suite in Tel Aviv. The encrypted link hummed to life. A face appeared on the screen. The deputy director of operations, a man known simply as Giora. "Report," Giora said, his voice tinny through the speakers. Aitan detailed the discovery, the warehouse, the Russian markings, the presence of Adnan al-Masri, and the modification workshop. There was a long silence on the other end. "Are you certain about the guidance kits?" Giora asked. Visual confirmation, Aitan confirmed. We saw the servos and the GPS integration units. They are turning dumb rockets into smart missiles. Giora took a deep breath. This changes the strategic assessment. We thought the pipeline was dry. If this shipment moves, it's a catastrophe. What are our orders? Sarah asked. Do we interdict? We can't strike in Greece, Giora said immediately. Diplomatically, it's impossible. We are allies. An airstrike or a noisy commando raid on European soil. The fallout would be immense. Then we stop it quietly, Aitan said. Sabotage. Can you do it without leaving a fingerprint? Giora asked. If the Greeks find out, or if there is collateral damage, we are Caesarea, Aitan said, a hint of professional pride in his voice. We don't leave fingerprints. You have 48 hours, Giora said. We have intelligence that a cargo ship, the Poseidon Star, is docking in Piraeus in 2 days. It's flagged in Panama but owned by a shell company linked to the Revolutionary Guards. That's their hideout. 48 hours to neutralize an arsenal inside a guarded fortress. Sarah muttered as the screen went black. We've done more with less. Aitan said, though he didn't fully believe it. He turned to the whiteboard. We need to get inside. Not with a drone, but physically. We need to know exactly how the inventory is packed and where the weak points are. And we can't shoot our way in. We need a key, Sarah said. We need the architect, Aitan corrected. Adnan holds the keys. We need to get close to him. He's a ghost, Aitan. He lives in that warehouse. Everyone has a weakness, Aitan said, pulling up Adnan's file again. He lived in Berlin for 10 years. He likes opera. He likes fine wine. He's not a monk in a cave. He's a man of tastes. Check his digital footprint in Athens. Does he order food? Does he have a cleaner? Does he see a doctor? Sarah began typing furiously. He has a burner phone pattern. Every Tuesday and Friday a call to a specific number in the city center. Who belongs to the number? A gallery. The Athena Collective. It's an art gallery in Kolonaki. Aitan smiled. The engineer has a soul, or a mistress. The owner is a woman named Eleni, Sarah said. Single, mid-40s. Tomorrow, Aitan said, we become art critics. The Kolonaki district of Athens was a world away from the grime of Piraeus. It was a neighborhood of neoclassical buildings, high-end boutiques, and trees lining the sidewalks. The air smelled of expensive perfume and roasted coffee. Sarah entered the Athena Collective wearing a tailored blazer and glasses that contained a high-resolution camera. She looked every inch the European investor. Aitan waited outside, monitoring the comms, playing the role of her driver. The gallery was stark and modern. Abstract sculptures made of twisted metal stood on pedestals. Sarah moved through the space, feigning interest in a piece that looked like a car crash frozen in time. It represents the chaos of urban life, a voice said behind her. Sarah turned. Eleni was elegant, with dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, and eyes that assessed Sarah's net worth in a single glance. It's striking. Sarah lied smoothly in French, knowing Adnan's background in Europe likely meant he and Eleni communicated in a shared European language. I'm looking for something distinct, for a client in Zurich. I am Eleni, the woman said, extending a hand. We have many distinct pieces. Are you in Athens long? Just a few days, Sarah said. My client is impatient. They spoke for 20 minutes about art, Sarah weaving a legend of a wealthy, eccentric buyer. She carefully steered the conversation toward the artist of the metal sculptures. The artist is very reclusive, Eleni said, a softness entering her voice. He doesn't like the public eye. He works with industrial materials. I would love to meet him, Sarah pressed gently. My client often requires a personal connection. He is difficult to reach, Eleni said, looking away. He works very hard, in the port. A port artist? Sarah smiled. How romantic. He is coming tonight, Eleni whispered, as if sharing a secret. For a private viewing. Just a few friends, if you are serious about the purchase. I am very serious, Sarah said. Back in the car, Sarah exhaled. He's coming out. Tonight at 8 p.m. Adnan is the artist, or at least he uses the gallery as his escape. Perfect, Aitan said. We don't grab him. That makes noise. We clone him. Clone him? His phone. his access card, his biometric data. Whatever he has on him that opens those warehouse doors. We need to get close enough to skim the data. They spent the afternoon preparing. The technical department in Tel Aviv had uploaded a cloning software to Sarah's phone. If she could get within 1 meter of Adnan's devices for 60 seconds, the software would copy the RFID signals of any key cards and mirror the contents of his phone. At 7:45 p.m., the street outside the gallery began to fill with luxury cars. Eitan parked down the block. Remember, he's paranoid. He's a Hamas engineer, not a painter. He will have security. I see him, Sarah said. Adnan arrived not in a van, but in a sedan. He stepped out, wearing a suit that didn't quite hide the bulk of a shoulder holster. 2 men flanked him, the same cold-eyed guards from the warehouse. They stayed outside the door while Adnan entered. He's inside. Guards are external, Sarah said. I'm going in. Inside the gallery, the atmosphere was hushed. Waiters circulated with wine. Adnan stood by Eleni, his hand resting possessively on her lower back. He looked different here, relaxed, almost human. It was the duality of the terrorist, the ability to discuss beauty while building machines of death. Sarah approached them, a glass of wine in her hand. She signaled the bump. As a waiter passed, Sarah feigned a stumble, spilling a small amount of wine near Adnan's shoes. "Oh, I am so clumsy," she exclaimed in French, moving into his personal space, dabbling at the air with a napkin. "It is nothing, madame," Adnan said, stepping back but not before Sarah had placed her handbag, containing the cloner, against the side of his jacket pocket. "I insist. Let me." She lingered, apologizing profusely, scanning. 20%, 40%. The readout on her glasses displayed the progress. "Please, it is fine," Adnan said, his eyes hardening slightly. The paranoia was kicking in. He didn't like strangers this close. 60%, 80%. "I am so embarrassed," Sarah said, looking into his eyes. She needed 10 more seconds. "Are you the artist? Eleni told me about the industrial sculptor." Adnan paused. Ego, the fatal flaw. He wanted to be recognized. "I am a creator, yes," he said. 100%. Clone complete. "Your work is powerful," Sarah said, stepping back. "I will leave you in peace." She walked away, her heart hammering against her ribs. She exited the gallery, nodding to the guards who watched her with suspicion. She slid into the car. "Got it." Eitan revved the engine. "RFID keys, phone data, and we even got a voice print. Let's go see what this artist keeps behind his locked doors." Back at the safe house, the data from Adnan's phone began to unspool on their screens like a digital tapestry. It wasn't just a phone. It was a ledger of the entire operation. "Look at this." Eitan pointed to a series of encrypted messages. "He's not just reporting to Hamas in Gaza, he's reporting to the IRGC in Tehran. This isn't a Hamas operation, it's an Iranian operation for Hamas." The text messages confirmed the timeline. The Poseidon Star was docking in 36 hours. The packages needed to be crated and loaded onto trucks by tomorrow night. But the most critical piece of data was the schematic of the warehouse security system. "It's a dual authentication system," Sarah explained, analyzing the code. "The RFID card we cloned gets us through the outer gate and the main door. But the inner sanctum, the clean room, where they are assembling the guidance kits, requires a biometric scan, retina or fingerprint." "We didn't get his fingerprint," Eitan said. "No, but we have his network," Sarah said. "Look at the roster." The files contained a list of the personnel working inside. Most were imported labor, likely brought in from Lebanon or Syria. But one name stood out: Kostas Koufos. "A Greek?" Eitan asked. "The night custodian," Sarah said. "They kept him on from the old ownership, probably to keep up appearances that it's still a local business. He has access to the cleaning supplies, the waste disposal, and the ventilation maintenance." "Does he have access to the clean room?" "He changes the air filters," Sarah said. "He has a maintenance bypass code." "We need Kostas," Eitan said. Kostas lived in a small apartment near the docks. He was a man in his 60s, weathered by a life of hard labor and heavy smoking. At 2 a.m., Eitan sat in the shadows of Kostas's small kitchen. He had picked the lock with silent ease. When Costas walked in for a glass of water, he froze. Aitan sat at the table, a gun resting clearly but non-threateningly on the surface. "Please," Aitan said in Greek, "don't shout. I am not here to hurt you. I am here to offer you a pension." Costas trembled. "Who are you? Are you with the Arabs?" "I am with the people who want to stop the Arabs from doing something very stupid in your country," Aitan said. He pushed a thick envelope across the table. It contained 50,000 euros, more than Costas would earn in 5 years. "What do you want?" Costas asked, eyeing the money. "Tomorrow night, when you go to change the filters in the clean room," Aitan said, "you're going to take a small device with you. You will stick it to the underside of the ventilation unit. That is all. They will kill me." Costas whispered, "Those men, they are not normal. They have eyes in the back of their heads. If you do this," Aitan said, "you leave Athens tonight. You go to your sister in Thessaloniki. Yes, we know about her. You disappear. We will protect you. If you don't..." Aitan let the silence hang. "Then you are just a witness to whatever happens next." Costas looked at the money, then at Aitan. He was a man who had seen the port change from a place of trade to a place of crime. He hated what his workplace had become. "The device," Costas said. "Give it to me." The next 24 hours were a blur of technical preparation. The device Aitan had given Costas wasn't a bomb. It was a sniffer, a wireless tap that would intercept the localized signals of the guidance systems. The Israeli plan was elegant in its cruelty. They weren't going to blow up the warehouse. That would cause a diplomatic incident and potentially kill civilians in the area. Instead, they were going to infect the guidance units. "We upload a dormant virus," Sarah explained as they monitored the signal from the van, parked a safe distance from the warehouse. "When Costas plants the repeater, we bridge into their local network. We reprogram the GPS coordinates in the guidance kits. So when they launch them..." Aitan trailed off. "They won't hit Tel Aviv," Sarah said. "They'll dive straight into the Mediterranean Sea immediately after launch, or fail to arm entirely. We turn their gold into lead." At 11 p.m., the signal on their screen spiked. "Costas is inside," Sarah said. "Signal strength is increasing. He's in the ventilation shaft." They listened to the audio feed from Costas's pocket. The sound of heavy breathing, the squeak of a ladder, the hum of industrial fans. "Come on, old man," Aitan whispered. "I'm at the unit." Costas's voice came through barely a whisper. "I'm placing it." A green light blinked on Sarah's console. "Link established, we're in." "Get out of there, Costas," Aitan said to the screen. But then a voice broke through the audio feed. A harsh guttural shout in Arabic. "Who is up there?" Aitan froze. "He's been spotted." "Hey, you!" The voice was closer now. "Get down from there." I am changing the filter," Costas stammered in broken English. "Routine maintenance." At midnight, the guard sounded suspicious. The sound of a weapon cocking was unmistakable over the audio link. "Adnan ordered it," Costas lied, desperation in his voice. "He said the air quality must be perfect for the electronics." There was a long pause. The guard was deciding whether to shoot the old man or check the story. "Get down," the guard snarled. "Move." "They're taking him," Sarah said. "If they interrogate him..." "If they interrogate him, the operation is blown," Aitan said. "And the Poseidon Star is docking in 12 hours. We have to move up the timeline." "What do you mean?" "We can't just rely on the virus anymore," Aitan said, checking his weapon. "They have Costas. Once they check the vent, they'll find the device. We have to go in, tonight." The plan shifted from cyber-sabotage to physical infiltration. It was the scenario Mossad tried to avoid, but the one they trained for relentlessly. "We need a distraction," Aitan said. "Something that pulls the security detail away from the main floor." Sarah looked at the port schematics. "There's a fuel depot 2 blocks east. If we trigger a fire alarm there, the emergency response will flood the streets. Chaos covers movement." "Do it," Aitan said. Sarah hacked into the Port Authority grid. Moments later, sirens began to wail in the distance, and the fire suppression systems at the neighboring depot triggered false alarms. Blue lights flashed against the rainy sky. Inside the warehouse compound, the guards were distracted, looking toward the commotion. Now, Aitan said. They moved to the blind spot of the perimeter fence, identified earlier by the drone. Aitan cut the wire, and they slipped through. They wore black tactical gear, their faces covered. They carried silenced pistols, not for assault, but for survival. They reached the rear door. Sarah used the cloned RFID signal. The lock clicked green. They were inside. The smell of the warehouse was a mix of oil, sawdust, and the sharp tang of fresh electronics. The vast space was filled with shadows. Aitan signaled for silence. They moved behind the rows of crates. In the center of the room, under the bright work lights, was the clean room, a glass-walled enclosure where the rockets were being assembled. Inside the clean room, Adnan was shouting at a subordinate. Costas was sitting on a chair outside the glass, looking terrified, a guard standing over him. They hadn't found the device yet, but they were suspicious. We need to neutralize the guards without alerting Adnan inside the soundproof room. Aitan signaled with hand gestures. There were 3 guards on the floor, 1 by Costas, 2 patrolling the perimeter. Aitan moved to the left, Sarah to the right. They moved like predators, synchronizing their breathing. Aitan came up behind the first patrolman. He didn't use his gun. He used a chokehold, cutting off the blood flow to the brain. The man went limp in 6 seconds. Aitan lowered him gently to the floor. Sarah stalked the second guard. He turned, sensing movement. Sarah lunged, driving her knee into his solar plexus and striking his temple with the butt of her pistol. He dropped, 2 down, 1 to go, the one guarding Costas. This one was facing the clean room. If they rushed him, Adnan would see it through the glass. The lights, Aitan whispered into his comms. Sarah tapped her wrist computer. She had access to the building's infrastructure. Click. The main warehouse lights died. The only illumination came from the clean room itself, turning it into a glowing fishbowl. The people inside couldn't see out into the dark warehouse, but Aitan and Sarah could see in. The guard by Costas spun around, blinded by the sudden darkness. Aitan stepped out of the shadows and fired a single specialized round, a tranquilizer dart. It wasn't standard issue, but for silent ops, it was essential. The dart hit the guard in the neck. He slapped at it, took a step, and crumpled. "Costas," Aitan whispered, moving to the old man. "Go, run, the back door's open." Costas didn't need to be told twice. He scrambled away into the dark. Now, it was just Aitan, Sarah, and the men inside the glass box. Adnan al-Masri was pacing inside the clean room. He realized the power cut wasn't normal. He pulled a pistol from his waistband and shouted at his technicians to cover the components. "He knows," Sarah said. "We can't let him leave," Aitan said. "He's the only one who knows the codes to the guidance systems. If he escapes, he can reset them remotely." They approached the glass door of the clean room. It was bullet-resistant. "Open it!" Aitan commanded over the building's intercom system, his voice distorted electronically. Inside, Adnan looked around, trying to locate the source of the voice. "Who is there?" he shouted, though the sound was muffled by the glass. "Mossad," Aitan said simply. The word hung in the air like a curse. Adnan's face went white. He knew what that meant. He grabbed a laptop from the workbench and raised his gun toward the door. "If you come in, I destroy the guidance units," Adnan yelled. "I have explosives rigged to the crates." Aitan paused. "He's bluffing." "Is he?" Sarah asked. "He's a fanatic. Martyrdom is part of the job description." "If he blows the crates, the whole warehouse goes up," Aitan said, "including us." "We have to breach," Aitan decided. "Flashbangs. Disorient him." They attached a small explosive charge to the door hinge. 3, 2, 1, boom. The door blew inward. Sarah threw a flashbang grenade into the room. A blinding white light and a deafening crack filled the enclosure. Adnan fired wildly, bullets sparking against the metal tables. Aitan and Sarah swept into the room low. Aitan tackled Adnan, knocking the gun from his hand. The engineer fought with desperate strength, but Aitan was a trained combatant. He pinned Adnan to the floor. Sarah kept her weapon trained on the cowering technicians. "Hands! Show me your hands!" Adnan spat at Aitan. "You are too late. The shipment is already logged. The ship is here." "The shipment is going nowhere," Aitan said. He pulled Adnan up and slammed him onto the chair. Sarah, the laptop, Eitan barked. Sarah grabbed Adnan's computer. It's encrypted. Adnan, Eitan said, his voice calm and terrifying. Unlock it. Go to hell, Adnan sneered. We don't have time for this, Eitan said. He looked at the guidance units on the table. They were open, vulnerable. Forget the laptop. We do it the hard way. They didn't need to hack the software if they could destroy the hardware, but shooting the units would leave evidence of a raid. Corrosive, Sarah said, spotting a cabinet of industrial chemicals used for etching circuit boards. Perfect, Eitan said. They worked fast. Sarah took the concentrated acid and carefully dripped it into the delicate sensor arrays of the guidance kits. It hissed as it ate through the gold wiring and silicon chips. To the naked eye, the units looked intact, but internally they were fried. When plugged in, they would register as functional, but the moment they tried to compute a trajectory, they would fail. That's 20 units ruined, Sarah said. What about the ones in the crates? We can't open them all, Eitan said. We have to disable the master controller. He turned to Adnan. Where is the master diagnostic unit? Adnan remained silent. Eitan looked at the technicians. You are hired hands, he said in Arabic. You want to go home to your families? Tell me where the master unit is. One of the technicians, trembling, pointed to a large metallic briefcase in the corner. Eitan opened it. It contained the calibration software and the encrypted keys for the entire arsenal. Without this, the missiles were just dumb rockets. Eitan took the hard drive out of the unit. He placed it on the concrete floor and crushed it with the heel of his boot, grinding it into dust. It's over, Adnan, Eitan said. Your smart missiles are lobotomized. Adnan stared at the ruined drive. The work of 3 years, destroyed in 3 seconds. They will just build more, Adnan whispered. And we will destroy those too, Eitan replied. The sound of sirens was getting closer. The fire distraction had worked, but now the real police, or worse, Adnan's backup, would be arriving. We need to vanish, Sarah said. They zip-tied Adnan and the technicians. They couldn't take Adnan with them. Kidnapping him across international borders was too high risk for this specific mission profile. Leaving him alive was a calculated insult. He would have to explain his failure to his masters in Tehran. That conversation would likely be terminal for him anyway. We leave them for the Greek police, Eitan said. Anonymous tip. Illegal weapons manufacturing ring found in Piraeus. Let the Greeks deal with the diplomatic mess. They wiped the security footage from the server room. They collected their gear. As they exited the warehouse into the rainy night, headlights swept across the compound gate. Company, Eitan hissed. A car skidded to a halt. 3 men jumped out with AK-47s, Adnan's backup. We're cut off, Sarah said, ducking behind a stack of pallets as bullets chipped the concrete around them. The back fence, Eitan yelled. Cover me! Sarah popped up and fired 2 controlled shots, forcing the attackers to duck. Eitan sprinted for the fence, using wire cutters to widen the breach they had made earlier. Move! Eitan shouted. Sarah sprinted, diving through the hole in the fence just as the gunman opened up again. They scrambled into the alleyway, slipping in the mud. They reached the Peugeot. Eitan started the car and slammed it into reverse, spinning it around. Go, go, go! Sarah yelled. They sped out of the industrial zone, blending into the traffic of the main highway. The sound of gunfire faded behind them, replaced by the wail of approaching police sirens. Chapter 10. The Aftermath. 2 days later, Eitan and Sarah sat in a cafe in Tel Aviv. The sun was shining, a stark contrast to the gloom of Piraeus. Eitan placed a newspaper on the table. Kathimerini, the Greek daily. Police raid Piraeus warehouse, the headline read. Massive illegal arms, cache discovered. 5 arrested. The Greeks are claiming it as a victory against organized crime, Sarah said, reading the article. No mention of Hamas. No mention of Mossad. Better that way, Eitan said, sipping his coffee. Adnan? Deported to Lebanon, Sarah said. He won't be building rockets anytime soon. The word is the IRGC suspects he sold them out. He's a pariah. And the Poseidon Star? Left port empty, Sarah smiled. The arsenal is in Greek custody. It will be destroyed. Aiton looked at the ocean. It was a clean win. No one died. The weapons didn't reach Gaza. The missing arsenal was found, neutralized, and buried in bureaucracy. You know, Aiton said, we never paid Costas the rest of his money. I wired it to his sister in Thessaloniki this morning, Sarah said. He's retired. Aiton smiled. Good work. Chapter 11. The Silent War. The operation was over, but the war wasn't. The discovery in Athens proved that the enemy's reach was growing. They were moving out of the shadows of the Middle East and into the logistical hubs of Europe. This was just one warehouse, Aiton said quietly. How many more are there? In Naples? In Marseille? In Antwerp? As long as they keep building them, Sarah said, we'll keep finding them. They stood up, leaving the newspaper on the table. They were anonymous again, just two people in a busy city. Chapter 12. The Next Mission. As they walked down Rothschild Boulevard, Aiton's phone buzzed. A secure message. New coordinates. Cyprus. Possible electronic listening post. Aiton looked at Sarah. She checked her watch. When does the flight leave? She asked. Tonight, Aiton said. The life of a Mossad agent is a cycle. Discovery, action, silence. There are no medals, only the next mission. Operation Silent Harbor was closed. The file would be buried in the archives, another secret history that saved lives without anyone knowing. But for Aiton and Sarah, the silence was the only reward they needed.